Hello, Comics Alternative fans. Before we start with the episode, we want to invite all of you to check out our Patreon campaign.
That's right. Go to www.patreon.com/comicsalternative for more details. There you'll find more information about the campaign and the cool rewards levels we have.
For as little as $1 a month, you can help us maintain good quality comics talk, and the more you contribute, the more perks you get.
These include monthly podcast episodes exclusive to Patreon supporters, as well as the chance to help us choose which books we review on the show. So be sure to visit www.patreon.com/comicsalternative and become one of our proud podcast patrons.
Yeah, and now on with the show.
This is the Comics Alternative, on location and talking with creators at HeroesCon 2015, Part 1.
Countdown for blast off. X minus 5, 4, 3, 2, X minus 1, fire.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative on location. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And this will be the first of two episodes that we're going to have based on our interviews with a variety of creators at HeroesCon, which was last weekend. Both Andy Wolverton and I walked Artist Alley talking with a variety of creators, and I think, Andy, we talked to over 20 of them. So what we're going to be doing is to break up these interviews into two different episodes. There's this one, and then tomorrow or Friday, I'll put up the second. But before we get to that, we want to let all of our listeners know that this episode of the Comics Alternative on location is brought to you by the good folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There you'll find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off the cover price. And every single month, you're going to find some incredible specials. Now, sometimes those specials are at 45% off cover price, and sometimes it's 50% off. But many times, the discounts are much more impressive than that.
And if you're one of these people that goes to your comic shop, or you order your individual titles one at a time, don't be a dope. Buy them in bundles. You can save tons of money. We have all kinds of specials at DCB Service. There are Valiant bundles. There is a Vertigo bundle, Marvel bundles, DC bundles. Don't be a dope. Buy them in bundles, and you can save up to 50%.
That's right. Take Andy's advice and go to Discount Comic Book Service. Their website is dcbservice.com. You need to go there for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your comics there, be sure to send them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
Yes, do let them know.
So, Andy, we are going to be listening to a variety of interviews, and in this episode, you'll hear our talk with Sophie Goldstein, Jenn Jordan, Michel Fiffe, Tom Neely, Keenan Keller, Craig Yo, Royden Lepp, Jenn Jordan, Hoyt Silva, and Max Dowdle. So there are a lot of people there.
Ooh, that is a lot of creators. You know, Derek, this is almost the next best thing to actually having been at the con.
Yeah, well, we had a really good time, and I hope that comes out in the interview. So let's go ahead and start listening.
Okay.
This is HeroesCon 2015, and I am at the table of two creators, Sophie Goldstein and Jenn Jordan. How are you guys enjoying the con so far?
Well, so far, it's been pretty relaxing. Friday was just people wandering around, but I hear today is going to be super intense, so I'm getting ready for that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This is my first time at HeroesCon, and yesterday was like Sophie said, it was a nice slow day to sort of get into the swing of things and to get a feel for the con, and I'm really excited about today.
Yeah. Now, you're right. Yesterday, it seemed to be a lot of people here, but I guess relatively calm compared to what they say we're going to be getting today. Now, Sophie, it's rather timely that we have you on the show in that our last episode, which was, I think, number 140, we did an Ad House publisher spotlight, and one of the, I think, 5 books we looked at was your brand new book, The Oven. And so now we talked about it from, let's say, 2 critical reviewer points of view, but I want to hear about The Oven from a creator's point of view. So what gave you the idea? What is the genesis of The Oven?
The genesis of The Oven is I had a passing obsession with the idea of tiny houses, living out of RVs and mobile minimalist living, which I think is something that a lot of people have a little bit of fascination, and they read a lot of blogs. And so I was doing a lot of research and just kind of getting into the idea of living off the grid is just a fantasy that I was living while, in my normal day-to-day regular person life. And of course that passed, but all the research and looking into these alternative communities kind of fed into the idea of The Oven, which takes place on an alternative community but in the future. So it's like a desert community that is an alternative to the contained, highly regulated bubble city that most of the people live in because of the evolutionary effects of environmental destruction. So
now, was this in any way, because when I was reading it, I was wondering if it may be some kind of commentary on the mindset of wanting to live off the grid. You say that's how it started, but then it just evolved a little bit after that?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of a utopia is something that's just very attractive to all generations at some point, and everybody has a different idea of what that means, what a utopia means based on the world that we live in. But utopias are problematic and difficult, and I think that although I maybe wasn't thinking about it exactly in those terms when I was writing about it, I was thinking about it in terms of the personal relationship with the characters. I think ultimately that's what really came through as I was working through my own desire to live in this kind of idealized society and the problems that one would encounter with that, because as they find out in the book, it's a lot of work to opt out of culture, which is how most of us end up being trapped into societies that we don't necessarily agree with. Is just that to really be free of that is incredibly difficult and time consuming, and takes someone with a lot of focus and devotion to ideals, and ideals are not food. They can't feed you. So yeah, I mean, I hope that when people read The Oven, they see that there's a couple different stories that are going on in The Oven.
Yeah, because it seemed to me that as the story evolved, there was much more of the relationship story that came out, and for obvious reasons. And I'm not going to give away what happens in the book, because that would be a spoiler. We're not into spoilers. But I know that the temptations of getting back into a kind of civilized life are there, and that are kind of the undoing. One question that I have for you, though, is the drug. Would you call it a drug that the guy takes? They're in the cocoons?
Yeah, they're the little pods that, because they have these creatures that are basically look like butterflies, like black butterflies. And that's their cocoon where you don't see them in their previous form, really. But it's pretty amorphous. But basically, I wanted to I think drugs are a real problem in these kinds of communities, because I was reading about them, and a lot of people who opt into or who opt out and go live in the desert are people who are meth addicts and like have serious problems. So, but when I was thinking about drawing it, I was like, I don't really want to draw people shooting up. I don't really want to draw like that sort of like the way that we in our culture consume drugs was just not visually interesting to me. But eating bugs, like, I'm into that.
Yeah, and I love the way I was just flipping through my copy that you just so kindly signed of The Oven, where you used the visual metaphor of the butterflies consuming an individual, basically landing on the individual, and so it's like the drugs consume and what is the guy's name, the main character's name, or one of the main characters?
Eric,
right? And even the end papers are the butterflies.
Yeah, one of the things, it was a richer visual metaphor, so it just like worked on multiple levels to have, and butterflies, there's like the flight metaphor of like leaving the ground and ethereal things, and then in the book design, the front inside covers are the cocoons, and the back inside covers are the fully grown bugs, so I wanted to like the idea of like transformation throughout the book, and both of the Eric especially undergoes a bigger shift, but both of the characters are transformed by their experiences. So, when you talk about it, it sounds like really like, ooh, isn't this great? I'm like using metaphors, but hopefully, I think in the book it's like more subtle that, a reader has to like make the connection themselves, and if they don't make the connection, it won't affect the reading of just like the facts of the story. Like they won't necessarily lose the plot.
Now, that was something that you had worked on solo, but the two of you have worked on a book together, and I see it right here, Darwin Carmichael is Going to Hell. And this is something, Jenn, you worked on with Sophie. Now, I'm not familiar with the book. How would you encapsulate it to someone like me, the uninitiated?
All right, so Darwin Carmichael is our webcomic that ran online from 2009-ish to 2013, and a few months later we kickstarted it and made it into a print book. And so the story is about our protagonist Darwin, who, due to an adolescent accident, has accrued a massive karmic debt. And karma, in the world of our book, functions almost like currency. You can have a positive balance or a negative balance, and that's going to affect your afterlife and your fate. So Darwin, due to something that's really not his fault, has this karmic debt that he has to work off unless, so that he doesn't, go to hell when he dies. So he's trying to disprove the title of our work.
Yeah, it also has the kind of fun conceit of like all mythologies are true. So you have all these demons and gods and like spirits from different cultures who are just kind of living in New York, holding minimum wage jobs, trying to make rent, and just basically, and like there's a recurring characters, which are these three kind of fallen angels, but who are not fallen angels in like the sense of being devils, but these angels who just live on Earth and are just huge stoners and are always sleeping on Darwin's couch. So at heart, like the story takes a more dramatic turn towards the end, but at heart it's a comedy. So it's very like my work together with Jenn is like much more humorous at heart than my solo work. And my first entry into cartooning was doing this webcomic with Jenn, so it's been kind of like going off on my own and doing stuff is like, oh, I'm just like a really dark person inside.
So you need a partner like Jenn to kind of bring out that fun side of you.
Jenn's the funny.
Yeah, I was, I really like, I also have a little bit of a dark streak, but it tends to emerge more as pretty black humor. I'm not as good with sort of tragedy, not the way that Sophie is, and so I think that
I'm the one who's like, let's just kill all the characters.
Yeah. We haven't killed anyone in a while. Let's just do that.
It's time.
Yeah.
So again, okay, so this started as a webcomic in
2009.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, and I've noticed that a lot of webcomic creators are going the route of starting off as a webcomic, then starting maybe a Kickstarter, some kind of crowdfunding like Kickstarter, and then seeing how that takes off, and then coming out with hard copies. And is that something that you guys would attempt to do again, or now having gone that route, now you gave each other weird looks, which since we're an audio podcast, our listeners would not know that if I didn't say anything. So would you do it again?
We are both, I think we're in agreement about this. We are very happy that we did it once, but we would not do it again.
Kickstarters are rough.
Yeah, and this is not to dissuade other people from doing it, because there are tons of people who have had multiple Kickstarters who are very, very successful, like Spike Trotman.
Yeah.
It was just, for us, it was very time-consuming. It took a lot of sort of physical and psychic energy, to just be on top of it for 30 days. And so it was a great experience, but it's not something that we really want to do again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against the idea of doing a webcomic, but I think with the audience that we built through Darwin Carmichael and with like the connections that I've made just like with my own cartooning, that we could possibly like find a publisher at the end of the road, or there's also these companies that exist now that help facilitate Kickstarters. And they take a cut of it, but a lot of like the shipping and just like that sort of stuff lightens the load. So there's more options. There's also Patreon, which did not exist when we were doing Darwin Carmichael. So it's very exciting as someone who has an interest in webcomics to see the kind of the new options that are available for monetize. I know monetizing sounds like the worst word ever, but just for like supporting creators in the webcomics community, which I think I think it's important that stuff exists alongside traditional publishing models, because I think that stuff is probably like where the future is heading, and I'm really glad that so many great creators are taking advantage of it. And you see stuff in webcomics that you don't see in traditional publishing, like different cultural areas. Like there's much more diversity in webcomics among like storylines and creators and characters and people of color, and the queer community is just like webcomics is great for that. So I'm just like, even though I've like, the Evan is traditionally published, I think of these things as being like both areas that I'm still interested in, not something that you get through so you can move to some other area.
Yeah, in fact, about 7 months ago, we started at the Comics Alternative a monthly series devoted exclusively to webcomics because, well, one, we weren't covering webcomics at all, really, and then two, we felt undereducated when it came to webcomics, so this was a way for us to kind of force ourselves to become familiar with more and more, little by little, webcomics. And I have noticed that webcomic creators, if they want a finished product, let's say maybe the first volume of their webcomic in hard copy, they may go to Kickstarter because that finished volume is the end product. But if it's an ongoing series, then they would go through Patreon. You mentioned that. So if you choose to go the webcomic route again, something that's ongoing like that may be a little less painful.
I absolutely agree. And I think Sophie was spot on when she said that the fact that there are more models in place to support artists just means that there's a wider array of voices being heard, and I think that's a really great thing.
Yeah, it's good to kind of spread the power throughout the community, and when you put the power in the hands of the creators, I think that's always going to be a positive thing and have a positive impact on the world. And hopefully traditional publishers will look at what's happening in webcomics and, get those creators like under their wings, so to speak.
Yeah, it puts power in the hands of the creators and of the fans, I think, because people can now directly support the kind of stuff that they want to see.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing I see here at the table, actually a couple of other things. There is House of Women and Edna 2. So what can you tell me about those?
House of Women is my Ignatz award-winning comic on, it's a science fiction comic about this group of women that go to this planet, Mopu, this distant planet, and they bring, the kind of mores of their empire, and they start a school there to indoctrinate the natives. And things pretty much immediately start devolving. It's not what they expected. They're not fully prepared. There's another human there that kind of throws a wrench into their inner workings. And the visual style for the book is inspired by Art Nouveau, particularly Aubrey Beardsley and Klimt and Egon Schiele and those kinds of people. So it's a very different looking book than my other work. So that's kind of that's House of Women. And then Edna 2 is a short comic about this older man who lives outside. Again, it's like people who kind of reject the future. So he lives outside the city with his like derelict robot, and his robot breaks down, making him go back to visit the city, which creates kind of like a lot of emotional turmoil for him when he meets people that he knows there. So that's a bit different in tone than House of Women. I mean, like, I'd like to think that all my work is different from each other, but it has a nice shiny silver color, and people really like that.
You know, my first introduction to your work is that piece that appeared in the 2013 Best American Comics volume. And I've asked this of creators who have appeared in Great American Comics occasionally. I've asked them this. I mean, what was it like when you got notification that one of your works was going to be in a book with Best and Comics in the title?
Well, after I got over the immediate reaction that I was being punked, because I got it through email, which is just like, I mean, we get like, you know, spam, you know. So, but I was reading it, and then I was just like, I mean, this is like getting that news was like the most excited I've ever felt about something that's happened to me professionally. Like, it was like the first big thing that happened to me in that sense, and it was just like I was sitting in class, and I had my computer because we were doing like learning computer stuff, and I just was like, I couldn't tell anyone, and I was just filled with this energy. And then immediately when we got out of class, I called my boyfriend, and I was like, you have to read this email and tell me if I'm like reading this correctly. And it was like a pretty amazing experience to happen to me. And then, you know, and then you get used to it, I guess.
You know, it seems something that important, they should announce it. It's kind of like the Publishers Clearinghouse. Right, you have people come to your door, or maybe come to you in class with balloons and flowers and say, guess what? You're in the next volume of Best American Comics. But, so you weren't punked.
No, thankfully not. But my next realization when I read which comic it was, I was like, none of my family will ever be able to read this.
Yeah, that's right. Now, what do you guys have working on either individually or together for the future?
So we're working on our second story together right now. We are writing the script, and I'd say that we're about a third of the way through it. And we haven't really landed on the form it's going to take, but it may start as a webcomic, and so we're working on that.
Yeah. Unlike Darwin was like pre-traditional webcomic, and then we just like kind of made it up as we went along. But we wanted this one to be like a fully conceived graphic novel, so we're writing the whole thing out beforehand. So that's been I think it's a good exercise for us. And we have like all the plot, we've been like rewriting stuff, which you don't really get to do when you're doing a week-to-week thing. So that'll be cool, and hopefully, like, next winter, it'll see the light of day in some form.
So maybe the end of this year or early 2016?
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing it as a webcomic and it's coming out, like, on, like, a bi-weekly basis, then it'll be sooner than if someone buys it as a book, and then, you know, and then you'll see it in, like, 10 years. I don't know. And then on my own, I'm working on House of Women Part 2, which, knock on wood, will be ready for SPX.
XPS? Oh, and I will be at XPS, so I hope to see you there. And you're going to be going, Jen?
I may. There's a little bit of a space issue, but we're gonna work it out.
Well, if you can work it out, then I hope to see both of you there, and House of Women too. So, Jen and Sophie, I want to thank you for taking the time and talking with the Comics Alternative, and I hope that the rest of HeroesCon is really good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm really pleased to be talking again with Michel Fiffe, whose Copra has really just become a favorite of a lot of people. I know it has with me too. So the con's going pretty good for you so far?
It's going great, yeah. We're not even, it's Saturday, right? Saturday morning. So far, so good. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows to come to. So, whenever I get the chance to come down to North Carolina, I'll take it,
Well, congratulations on the success of Copra. I think I told you last time I saw you, I first picked it up at Third Eye Comics, the first compendium, which is like really expensive to get now.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah. So I was really glad I got that, and I just really got hooked on the title. And it seems like more and more people are discovering the title, which is great. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of great feedback.
Yeah, well, that's the best part. Our biggest hurdle was getting people to not to read the book, but getting it into their hands. And I think getting into Diamond kind of helped that a little bit to reach stores. Reach a wider audience, so that's helped a little bit for sure. And doing these shows too, every show, not everyone knows what this is, and that's what I'm here to tell them. Like, you may want to check this book out; they may like it. So far so good in terms of that. Like new readership. So it's worked.
I talked to a guy yesterday. I met a guy. I was talking with him, and we were talking about indie comics.
Yeah.
And he said, I've seen Copra, but I really don't read superhero comics. And I said, look, you got to pick this up. You got to take a look at it. Just the art's going to pull you in. Give it a chance. And I hope to talk to the guy later. I'm going to try to track him down and see if he did. So what's your pitch for people that might not be superhero readers?
Well, I find that non-superhero readers still like the book because it has an art quality that you don't normally see, especially applied to this sort of material. And I find that superhero fans like it just because of the story and the structure of it. It feels familiar to them. It's something they could relate to. So, I don't know. When I sit down to do it, I don't think about those distinctions, but when it's done, when it's out in the world, I actually get positive feedback from both camps, you know what I mean? And everyone in between. So that's been kind of fun and interesting because I do like both sorts of books. I don't say I'm not going to read this kind of book, really, on such a large scale like that. But I understand that. I understand why an adult wouldn't want to read a superhero book. Like, I totally get that. And if they're not going to be part of my readership, that's fine too. Like, there's so many comics out there, especially today, to get. So, but I think they'll like mine, because it stands apart from the rest of the stuff that they may deem as like superhero comics. It's not really a superhero comic. I mean, it is because there's like colorful costumes and extravagant adventures and just goofy concepts. But it's just told in a very distinct way. So I don't know. Yeah. It may not be for everyone, but so far I've had good luck with that.
Well, that's cool to hear. Yeah, it really is. Well, listen, I know you got a busy day ahead, and I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the con, and looking forward to more Copra. And do you have some other projects that you're working on too right now?
Well, aside from my monthly Copra schedule, I have a Daredevil story coming out in a Secret Wars, Secret Love anthology. It's a one-shot that's coming out in August, so be sure to check that out. It was really fun to do.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, thanks for talking with us.
Of course.
I'm here at the table of Tom Neely and Keenan Marshall Keller. Now, you guys were on the podcast about a month ago, so this is a quick return. How's it going?
Great. We're having a good time at... Where are we?
Charlotte.
You are having a good time.
Yeah. HeroesCon has been really fun so far, so we're doing good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, had either of you, individually or even together, been to HeroesCon before?
I had never. This is my first time. I had lots of artist friends telling me that I needed to come to this con for the last 3 years, so this is my first time, and so far they were right. It's been really good.
I came in 2008 when I had my first book, The Blot, out, and I had a lot of fun, but I only sold one copy the whole time I was here. So
copy? Oh my God!
So it took me 7 years to get back, but it's great. I'm glad I came back because this show is really awesome. I got to meet Michael Golden yesterday, and that was cool.
Wow! Yeah. So do you feel a little bit like MacArthur, that you have returned?
No, well, not quite. It's not quite the triumphant return, but I don't know. It's great meeting. There's so many artists here. Yeah. There's a lot of great talent to meet and everything, and better than San Diego. San Diego is like so overwhelming, whereas this you can actually talk to people and meet people. It's fun.
Are you going to San Diego this year, guys?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we'll be there. We'll have a table in the artist alley.
It's all too soon. It's like 3 weeks from now. But yeah, we'll be there.
Now, what has been the reaction to Humans? Have people been coming up primarily because of that? Bikers?
Not so much bikers, but yeah, lots of people have been coming up. We've been gotten a really good response. It seems like in the South we get a better response than we have in other places. So
Really?
Yeah, we were just talking about that. It's like, I think there's a biker festival somewhere nearby going on this weekend. So I think that's where our bikers are. But
yeah, we lost some of our fan base.
We have like a lot of. But yeah, we're finding out. I think somehow our comic does appeal more to like a Southern culture in some ways,
sense of freedom,
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Really? So you think that? So that's part of it. This sense of government get off our backs. We're just leave us alone.
I think. I mean, I grew up in Texas, and he grew up in Florida. So we're kind of like part of. Sorry. Can you edit this right?
Southerners are used to eccentricities and weirdness more than maybe people farther east and farther north, so I feel like they're used to weirdos and can appreciate it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I grew up in North Carolina, so yeah.
You knew a lot of weirdos growing up,
Oh, yeah.
Like people that didn't wear shoes, and everybody knew that chick that didn't wear shoes and hop around on a hot day,
Yeah, they're like the kind of people you see in Flannery O'Connor stories, right? I mean, that's the normal.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now, your other books. Now I know that Keenan, you have. You guys have, now you have 2 tables now.
We lucked out. Somebody canceled, so we absorbed their table.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So now you talked a little bit about this when we spoke on the podcast the other month, but for listeners who didn't hear that, what do you have down here?
It's just my self-publishing company, Drippy Bone Books. I self-publish my own work, Galactic Breakdown, Force Majeure, and then I also publish some other artists, weirdos like Pat Alicio and Derek M. Ballard. So I've just brought a small assortment of my books. I didn't bring our full range because we didn't think we'd have as much room as we do. So
you have a lot of room now.
Yeah, we do. So I'm glad I brought something at least. But yeah, I've got For Real, which is Pat Alicio from Philadelphia. I've got both the cartoon shows from Derek M. Ballard. He's a Florida artist who's really amazing. Angular, semi-softcore books. And then also his new Ghoulonoids, which is a very strange, very beautiful comic. And then we got our Marvel Comics Presents, which is our Marvel Comics parody.
Yeah. And now to find Drippy Bone online, they would go to...
we have... my website is defunct, so we have a Store Envy site. So if you just look up Drippy Bone Books, you'll either find our Facebook or our Store Envy site. So.
And you also have the copy of Henry and Glenn Forever and Ever that both of you are in.
Yes, that's Tom's one of the madmen behind it, but I have a 11-page comic in it as well.
One of the longer ones.
Yes, yeah. I have a hard time truncating things, so everything gets bigger and bigger. And I draw big and ugly, so it takes up a lot more space.
So now you guys are into this, well, at least, you're definitely into it, but we're just now seeing the beginning of the next narrative arc with the Humans. So is there anything you can tell us about, without giving anything away, what to look forward to?
Well, the next issue is At the Forbidden Zone, which is all about Johnny's attempt to reach out to his long-lost love, Peg. So it's going to be a really great issue. It's a little bit heavier on the story, so I'm excited to start getting into the character and the plot of the entire series here in the next couple issues. But it's strip clubs and bar fights is what you're going to get in the next couple issues. So,
and I think strip clubs and bar fights in many ways kind of define that interview that we had about a month or so ago. And for those who have not listened to that, again, check it out on the Comics Alternative. It's one of the most memorable interviews, especially when it comes to language, that we've ever done. So, listen, I know that Tom's talking with fans here, but I want to thank you guys, Keenan, and then Tom, for talking with us again on the Comics Alternative.
No fucking problem.
Yeah, and there you go. See, that's the kind of thing to expect, guys. Good luck with the con.
All right, thanks a lot.
At the table of Craig Yo, who is the most interviewed individual on the Comics Alternative, and this adds to that number. So how is HeroesCon going with you, Craig?
Oh, fantastic. It's great sitting here with you and watching all the cosplayers go by, but my favorite part of this convention is I've never seen a more comics-oriented convention. So I think Shelton Drum he's a superhero to me with his HeroesCon because he keeps the emphasis about comics, and I salute him.
Yeah. Now this is your first HeroesCon?
It is, and I hope not my last, because it just really brings out the people who are really passionate about comics, and we've had a great response to our books. I'm very gratified and humbled. And have you ever seen me humble before?
I don't know if I've seen you humble. In fact, at this con, it's the first time I've literally seen you. We've had you on the show several times, and that's one of the things we were looking forward to. This was almost like a coming home in a way. We'd never met, but we finally got to meet.
Welcome home, Cotter or something.
Yeah. Welcome home with Craig Yo.
Yeah, no, this is great, and it's great meeting you and being at this convention, and I'm having a ball. It's one of my favorite cons already, and just like I said, my first time. So
now we're neighbors. I can look over and see my table. We can see you over here. Have you had a lot of traffic over the past couple of days?
Well, yeah, just being near you guys. I mean, I'm just kind of getting the glow, from you guys. I mean, it's great. And so, like, maybe the people that don't want to spend the time to stand in line to get your guys' autograph, they wander over to my humble table, see how humble I am, and they might buy a book or two.
Yeah. And you're taking a lot of pictures with cosplayers, I know.
Oh yeah. I love the cosplay, and I love the really good costumes, and I love the really bad costumes.
What are some of the worst costumes you've seen here, but bad in a good way?
Well, I just saw a guy walk by, and he had a bay window and this kind of 70s mustache, and he was dressed as Batman, and I thought, geez, that's like porn Batman, So he was one of my favorites, I thought. He was my 1970s mustache porn Batman, and I was his Robin, standing next to him. So I thought that was a good photo op.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the porn, what do you think of some of these rather revealing costumes? I know there was someone yesterday who was here in a black bustier, and it was interesting, let's say.
Yeah, I see these young girls going around in their little skimpy skirts and everything, costumes, and I feel like taking up a protest sign that says "Down with miniskirts."
No, well, if there was a way to work this into, maybe they gravitate to you because of Weird Love.
Well, I'm all about the weird love. And, we put out this book called Weird Love, which is these funky, wacky, weird romance stories from the 1950s and 60s and 70s comics. And it's my favorite project. It's just such a hoot. And it's funny, like, everybody loves it. I mean, guys love it, gals love it, and feminists love it, and Neanderthals love it, and everybody seems to find their own reason to be into Weird Love. Are you into Weird Love?
I like Weird Love.
Yeah, okay. You like it. Okay.
Well, no, I love Weird Love, but I didn't say love Weird Love because then that's the repetition of the word love.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, you can't have too much love. All the world needs is that.
That's true. So, and now, not just at HeroesCon, but in general, where do you think most readers of your work, of your books, know you by? Is it the horror series? Is it your Ditko books? Is it the Archie stuff? The Weird Love? The Haunted Horror?
Well, I think that we are publishing romance and humor and horror and so there's a wide variety. I'd like to think there's some people that would get every book, but certainly, there's some different audiences for different things. I think sometimes we get a crossover, though. So people see, I like the horror they've been doing, so let me try this weird romance. Or, they seem to do a good job on Ditko, so, maybe I would like, to try something else they did. I loved Archie when I was growing up, so I'll get their Archie history book or something. So I think we get some crossover. But I'm not so naive to think that there are certain audiences for some certain kinds of things. The horror books, my friend Bob Schreck next to me has been pointing out, because he saw these old guys that like old horror, the old school comic book collectors. They come up and buy my horror books, but then he sees these young, these very young people, and they're all tattooed and hip and cool, and they come up and buy my horror books, and so that's very gratifying to me that there's another generation that that's getting into this stuff too. So That's it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Ditko, and I didn't get up to the ceremony late yesterday, but you said that you had something from Steve Ditko. Yeah. Tell listeners about that, and tell me what went on.
Well, they asked me to. They knew Ditko might not show up to accept his Joe Sinnott. I think it's called a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Is it the Inkwell?
Yeah, it's the Inkwell Awards. Bob Allman puts together these Inkwell Awards, and so he was awarded this year for the Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame Award for outstanding achievement in the field of comic book inking. And they knew Steve might not show up. There was a possibility that it would be a no-show. So I was the yo-show. I accepted on his behalf, and I wrote him a letter telling him that I knew he was going to get this award, and I asked for a statement. So he wrote me back, and basically kind of quote it verbatim here. I started on having it in front of me, but his statement was that he didn't believe that groups or committees should decide, what's good and what's not good, what's worthy of being, having an award and stuff, and he didn't believe in that. But that these people were free to have their awards if they wish. So that was the story right there.
Yeah. So that, speaking his mind and being gracious at the same time.
Yes, speaking his mind.
Yes. Well, that was good. So, and you have the award right here in your hand.
I'm going to see if I can, next time I'm in New York City, I see if I can get it over to him. But in some sense, he's kind of said that he's really not interested. So I don't want to, if he's really not, I don't want to push it on him. So maybe I'll keep it on my mantle until he stops over on pizza night or something like that.
Because you guys hang out a lot, right?
Oh yeah. We golf and play a little canasta.
Well, Craig, listen, good luck with the rest of HeroesCon, and I know I'm going to see you several times over the weekend.
For dinner tonight, you're buying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, listen, all your listeners, I shout out to each and every one of you, and I love Comics Alternative. It's my favorite podcast, so keep on listening.
That's right. Thanks a lot, Craig.
And trucking. Keep on listening and trucking. Okay.
I'm very pleased to be talking with Royden Lepp, who is the writer and illustrator of Rust, which is one of my favorite series. Royden, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, well, thanks for talking to us. Had a good con yesterday so far?
Yeah, it's good. It's my first time at the show, and I had a lot of people telling me that HeroesCon was a show that I couldn't miss. So I've had great expectations, and it's been great. It's a really, really good show, really creator-focused, and it's a pretty fun place to be.
Cool. Well, I saw that you were going to be here, and I was very excited. I've been reading Rust pretty much since the beginning, and as I told you off mic, I'm a librarian, and I really love putting this in the hands of kids. But for people that may not be familiar, can you give us a brief intro to the story?
Yeah, absolutely. Rust is a 4-volume graphic novel series. It's one of Archaea Boom's all-ages books. So it takes place in kind of an alternate 1930s reality where a great long war was fought using robots. And this character, Roman Taylor, he's a young adult man, and his father doesn't come back from the war. So he's trying to keep his family together, trying to keep his farm running. And one day this kid with a jetpack named Jet Jones crashes through his barn, being chased by a giant robot. And that's pretty much all I can tell you without spoiling anything. That's kind of the kickoff. So,
and I think with kids that I talk to, that's all they need to know. They really just want to know jetpack and robots, and they're sold. And you try to tell the parents, well, there's some history involved too, but the kids, by that point, the kids are just nose deep into it. So yeah, it's a great book. I've really loved every volume. Now the 4th and final volume will be out.
That's a long pause.
Don't mean to put you on the spot. It's because I'm looking forward to it so much.
I appreciate it. The 4th volume it's going to be a little later than the last few. My wife and I just had a baby boy at home, and so
congratulations.
Thank you, but my schedule has changed, so I'm finding it a little harder to get time to write and draw. But I'm well into it, working on it every day, and I'll get it done as soon as I can. But I definitely can't give any dates yet.
Yeah, well, we understand, and congratulations again. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm sure that does change the schedule just a bit.
Sure does. Yeah.
Great. Well, listen, thanks for talking with us, and hope the rest of the con is great. And good luck with all your other stuff that's going on besides. Or do you have some other things besides Rust that are in the works?
No, my life revolves around Rust these days, and Volume 4 is definitely what I'm working on. But we're also thinking about maybe some interim books that will help feed readers hunger for the story in the world in between now and Volume 4. Can't give specifics about what that is, but I'm hoping to get something out into the hands of people that will keep them in the world of Rust.
Great. Well, we look forward to it. Thanks again for talking with us.
Thank you very much.
I'm at the table of Jenn Jordan, and how has HeroesCon been for you this year?
It's been great. Yeah, this is one of my favorite cons. This and Baltimore Con tend to be my favorites. Baltimore kind of gets the nod because it's only 3 hours away from my house as opposed to the 10 that this is. But it's been a great weekend, too, so I'm very happy.
Yeah. Now, how many times have you been to HeroesCon?
This is 4 or 5. So I've been every year for the last few years. I think this is 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting because I think a lot of people know you by your Luther Strode comic, and I'm one of those who came to you not through Luther Strode. So I have to plead ignorant. I haven't gotten there yet when it comes to Luther Strode, but you're bringing Luther Strode back.
We are. Legacy of Luther Strode, which will be the third and final Luther Strode miniseries, debuted in April. We're on a bi-monthly schedule right now through probably February of next year, mostly because the issues have sort of grown, because we decided to make them however long we felt they needed to be rather than trying to stick it to 20 pages. But it's going well. Yeah, it's kind of bittersweet to leave the thing we broke into comics on, but we only have like 18-ish issues of story, so we decided to get out before we, were wasting people's time.
So how will the legacy of Luther Strode be significantly different from the earlier Strode?
It's bigger. We've kind of tried to change up what we were doing with each one. The first one is sort of a twisted superhero origin / wish fulfillment thing. The second one is a little more of a crime story. The third one is kind of, I refer to it as our James Bond Luther Strode because it's big action taking place worldwide. So we've tried to switch it up every time we do it. It's really cool.
Now, one of your comics that I'm very familiar with is Spread, and that seems to have really taken off in kind of a different way. I mean, people who know your work with Luther Strode picked up the Spread, but it seems to resonate different. Are you getting kind of different audience reaction from the Spread?
Yeah, a bit. It's interesting doing an ongoing. People tend to be really into it in a different way. Like the miniseries nature of Luther Strode made that kind of a different animal. But there's some overlap in the fandom. I think people will like either one when they read it. But yeah, the Spread audience tends to be more into kind of the overarching story of it and, kind of theorizing what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah, well, you have this kind of, I guess for one of a better term, post-apocalyptic world. I mean, a place where something has happened and something doesn't look good, and so there's a lot of story possibility there. Have you even informally kind of mapped out an entire story for Spread, or is this going to just wrap up when it eventually wraps up?
No, we have a long-range story for it. I've got about 60 issues planned for it. There's a definitive end to it, and there are signposts of the plot that we need to hit along the way. It could go longer, and if sales are not where they need to be, they've been great so far. But if they diminish, it could be shorter. But there's a sequence that takes us to a definitive endpoint. Yeah, anytime I'm doing, even when I do ongoing stuff, there's always an endpoint in mind for me. It's just kind of how I approach storytelling and all that stuff. I think it makes for a stronger story that way. So, yeah, we're heading towards a definite point, but it's still a few years off.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. So you would ideally like for there to be at least 60 issues there?
Yeah, because part of the reason I wanted to do Spread was to have a big, immersive world to kind of tell stories in and see what interested me. There's a lot of stuff about post-apocalyptic stuff that you don't see examined as much in, like, a lot of popular culture stuff. So, like, the world building and exploring how people would react to these kind of traumas and, how societies form and all that kind of stuff is interesting to me, and I wanted a place I could tell those kind of stories in. So, Spread is by design a big story that allows me to have kind of a wide canvas for that sort of thing.
Now, did you from the beginning decide to tell this from the perspective of someone who in the story is a baby, but has grown now and is looking back and telling her in her father's story, her keeper story?
Yeah. The by design, part of that was part of it is strictly pragmatic, in as much as No doesn't really talk that much, and the other part was I like the idea of kind of a retrospective look back, because it allows you to exposition without being too exposition-y about it, and it also, you can kind of build in, it allows different storytelling possibilities, so you're telling the story from the point of view of somebody who knows how it ends, so there can be foreshadowing, and it allows you to kind of contrast what the narration's saying versus what's going on, and give it kind of a different feel for it. And it's one of those things, the book is in part an homage to like things like Mad Max and stuff, and like Road Warrior in particular has that kind of narration a bit. They don't lean on it too much, but it's narrated by somebody who you, spoilers for a 30-year-old movie, find out was in the movie at the time and is looking back on it, telling it retrospectively. So it's also kind of an homage to that, too.
Now, your miniseries Dead Body Road is a very different kind of story from Spread, and was that just a limited series that you wanted to tell your story, kind of get it out of your system?
Yeah, I mean, the deal with Dead Body Road is we would like to do another one, but if we do another one, it won't be a sequel. It'll be more what like True Detective has done, where each season of it, for lack of a better term, would be a different story, kind of in the same, thematically similar, but like different plots, different characters, different stuff. So we would like to get around to doing another one of those. But yeah, I'm a big fan of crime. Like what I read in most of my fiction is like crime novels and that kind of stuff. It's what I tend to gravitate to. So I wanted an opportunity to write it. And it's kind of hard to do in comics. Ed Brubaker really has that sewn up to a large extent. Him and Darwin Cook and Greg Rucka, kind of the big dogs there. It's where Brian Bendis started as well. So I wanted an opportunity to do that and got it. So, and I was really pleased with how it came out. I really wanted to work with Mateo as well, so it worked out well for us.
So we may see more Dead Body Road in some form or another on down the road.
Yeah, we may. I would like to do it, so hopefully that'll come about sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much, Justin, for talking with the Comics Alternative. Good luck with the new Luther Strode, Spread, and your other work.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me, and good luck with the podcast, dude.
Thanks. I'm here with Hoyt Silva, who is the artist of the recently published Operation Nemesis. And Hoyt, how has HeroesCon been for you?
Oh, HeroesCon has been amazing. This show is spectacular every year. It surprises me every single year. It's an amazing show. My favorite show I do every year.
So how many times have you been to HeroesCon?
This is my 5th or 6th year coming. It's my 3rd year tabling here. So, yeah.
And have you had much response to your latest book, Operation Nemesis?
Yeah, actually, lots of positive response. Apparently I'm big in Armenia right now, which is kind of weird to me, but yeah, lots of people. It's cool because it's a subject that actually I wasn't very informed on before taking on the project, and then I got to do a lot of research about it, and Josh, the writer, he actually got extensive with his research as well, and it was a learning experience, and I wanted to sort of get the message out there. Once I heard about it, I wanted to make sure that other people also started to know about it, because it's something that it should be talked about. Yeah.
Now, you told me before we started recording that you hadn't yet listened to the review we did a few weeks ago on Operation Nemesis. So you're speaking from, let's say, not knowing what we have said about this. We like the book.
Okay. All right.
So, but now one of the questions was going to be, how personal was this story for you? But you said that you didn't really know a lot about the history. Was there a lot of education you had to go through, educating yourself?
Absolutely. There was a lot of education to go through with that. And I enjoy that kind of stuff, because there was... when I was first approached about the book, I wasn't entirely sure that it was for me, because it's kind of a heavy subject, and, I'm not Armenian, I didn't have that, cultural connection to it, but once I started to do the research, I realized that there was a story there that should have been told, that needs to be told, there's people that, like I said, I'm 27 years old, and I had never heard of it before, and it's something that happened 100 years ago, almost to the day now, we're a couple of months out away from the anniversary now, but, I don't know. It's just something that it was good. It was a good learning experience. I really appreciated like everything that I got from it and everything like that.
Now, one of the things that we had noted in the review was there seemed to be, in terms of Josh's writing, kind of a shift at times from kind of a first-person account to something more like a third-person objective account, and going back and forth, which I thought was a kind of a strategic way of telling the story. Did you? I mean, and this was represented in the art. Now, was this something that you guys discussed together, or is this kind of perspective going from the first person to third person and then back again something that you wanted to do with the art?
No, actually, Josh had that sort of stuff in the writing. What it was is actually a lot of that stuff it's based on actual fact. Like the events actually happened, and things from like the court he used the court transcript for a lot of the dialogue in the courtroom, and lots of accounts like actual historical accounts of the events and everything. So we tried to stick to that, but we had to take some artistic license with a few things to be able to actually tell like a nice fluid story and arc characters and all that. But yeah, the bouncing back and forth was something that I really enjoyed. I think it gave us a good perspective on everything, not just from our protagonist, Telerian, but also from other people who were, affected by the events that happened to them, their families, and their ancestors.
In fact, yesterday I was part of a panel on teaching comics in terms of history, historical context, and even learning history through comics. And one of the things I brought up specifically was Operation Nemesis, and I used it as an example of that, along with Ho Che Anderson's King, about Martin Luther King, as the way that both of you tell the story of a historical event. Or a historical personage, in the case of King, is that you provide different perspectives, and what that does is it shows us that there's not one view or one story that composes history, that there are various accounts that go into that. So I think, coming back to Operation Nemesis, that was something that you guys handled both, with the story and also visually very effectively in that book.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's something that we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that, we had a solid grounding for everything, because like you said, there's not just one side to every story, and I think that when you get the diverse perspectives from everybody, that's when you can start to build a full picture, and that it was really fun to work on that book. Not that actual the genocide was fun, but the learning and everything like that, and being able to get that out.
Yeah, and in no way whatsoever did you trivialize that. I mean, one of the things that many people who try to, through whatever kind of art, whether it be comics or poetry or fiction, represent the Holocaust, many times they say, okay, by representing it through art, it kind of cheapens or trivializes it. And, it can be kind of divisive. But to me, there was nothing whatsoever trivializing. I mean, it was very heavy. And furthermore, you're bringing attention to a historical, to an event, a genocide that has, by your own admission, you really didn't know about the Armenian genocide. Most people don't. I mean, we've had, the past 100 years, other genocides have kind of eclipsed the Armenian one. Now, you mentioned that you're much loved now in Armenia. Have you found that Operation Nemesis is being used, Armenia as well as here and elsewhere, as a teaching tool?
Yes, actually, funny enough, I've actually been approached by a couple of different professors that actually want to use that in their classes, and I have no real say in that, so I have to sort of forward them to the publisher and make sure that that's all right with everything going on there. But yeah, and that's kind of the objective, the objective of the story. It's kind of a different kind of take on it, in that the story was compelling and it had all that, but we wanted to spark a conversation. We wanted to start a dialogue between people that may not know, or or that people that do know, and have those conversations, because that, like I said earlier, it needs to be talked about. It is heavy, and at moments, I read Josh's scripts, and there were moments when I would read it and I would just be like, oh man, how am I going to do this? Do I really want to draw this? And there's a particular scene in there that was just a little too much, but when I sat back and
in terms of the violence and the graphics?
In terms of the violence and the graphics, and one of the things that I had to deal with was just to figure out a way to do that, and like you said, to not trivialize it, because we didn't want to do violence for violence sake. It was violence that was telling a message, that was trying to get across a point, and just to, I don't know, we didn't want to make light of it. It was a serious subject, and we didn't want to play around with that.
Yeah. Well, now with Operation Nemesis out and being read and used as an educational tool, what else are you working on right now?
Currently, I'm working on a book for Action Lab. I'm working on a book for 12 gauge, and I'm working on Mercy Sparks for Devil's Due as well.
Okay.
So I'll be drawing issue 9 of that.
So what for Action Lab and 12 gauge? Can you tell us?
Not right now.
So it's still at the planning stage.
No, they're actually into the art stage. I'm actually creating art for all the books at this point, but they're just not ready to launch yet.
Okay.
So
fair enough. Well, there's something for us to look forward to.
Yes.
So Hoyt, thank you very much for talking with the Comics Alternative.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
I'm standing in front of Max Dowdle at HeroesCon 2015. Max, how has this con been for you?
Very good so far. It was last year was my first HeroesCon experience as for tabling, and it was a bit eye-opening, but this year's been even better. Friday was a little slow, but Saturday, yesterday just really picked up a lot, and I'm expecting big things for today as well.
Well, that's great. Now, one of the things I see, and I'd like for you to introduce our listeners to, is a book here that I wasn't familiar with, and thanks to our mutual friend Gabriel Dunstan, who showed me your table, this is Shattered with Curve of Horn, and it is a graphic novel. So for the uninitiated, how would you encapsulate or describe this novel?
Okay, well, Shattered with Curve of Horn is about 4 friends who take an experimental drug and go walking through each other's dreams to untangle the knots. So it's a bit of a mind-bending mystery, and people who've read it like to reread it and look for clues and things like that. So it takes a lot of cues from even things from as disparate as old Tales from the Crypt comics all the way up to things like Inception, movies like Inception. So a lot of film references as well. Yeah.
If you hear a radio station in the background, the Ghostbusters mobile just fired up their radio. Yeah, Ecto One. Yeah. So anyway, well, we can get beyond that. So okay, so that is the premise of Shattered.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And then thematically, it's more about the sort of the font of ideas. Where does creativity come from? Where do ideas come from? These people, they share minds at one point in the story. So you have a character who's an artist, and he starts to have inspiration for paintings that maybe don't come from his own memories, but somebody else's memories. So this runs into a sort of muddy area of who owns an idea, where does an idea come from, things like that.
Okay. So now, did this originally appear in installments elsewhere, either in print or online, or did you hold on to everything until you had the completed graphic novel?
This was actually a webcomic first, but it was always intended to be a published, this is the way I want people to experience it, is hardback format. And but I put it out online for close to a year, and then I actually ran a Kickstarter, and it was a big success on there. I got $2,500 over what I asked for, and I was able to put that back in the book and make a really nice hardbound copy that was just got all the frills, all the spot gloss, everything, and made a quality product that I was happy to sell.
In fact, I was going to ask you, if you went the route of Kickstarter, because that's one of the things I've been finding is we do a webcomics monthly series for the Comics Alternative, and we have found that many creators will do a webcomic and maybe have the complete story or maybe a volume within that story, then do a Kickstarter to get a hard copy edition out to their readers. And I have found from a lot of webcomics that the fans of webcomics are avid.
Yes.
Especially and you can see this with webcomics that have comment pages where they can react to that. Sure. And I think that enthusiasm translates into sales of the hard copy. The Kickstarter, sounds like that's the case with you.
Definitely. And this was, from the start, the idea was always that it was going to be a collected book, and I just thought, well, how will I get there? So I started thinking, okay, webcomic is a good place to start. I can get out there, I can get feedback, I can have a dialogue with people about where the story is going, and I actually ran the Kickstarter when it was about halfway finished online. And so it was just reaching sort of a climactic moment. I was like, this is a good point. It's getting kind of dynamic now, because it's a little bit of a slow burn, but it was starting to kick up a little bit, and I was like, this is a good time to sort of parlay that interest that's there into something like the Kickstarter, and it ended up being a success, so I was happy with that. Yeah.
Now, you were also an art teacher, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and I as I was telling you before, I studied in Italy for close to 2 years at a classical atelier, portraiture, and then I taught at the College of Charleston. And I've taught workshops and various things as well. So my bread and butter day job is fine art. I'm a gallery artist, and I do portraiture and landscapes and still lifes and more surreal kind of things. But I do comics on the side, and this is a fun sort of creative outlet.
Well, I can see, and there's some, obviously our listeners can't see because we are an audio podcast, but beautiful illustrations here. And here I'm looking at Batman, Catwoman. I can never look at too many representations of Catwoman. Right. So you're like all around. I mean, not just comics, but fine art, portraitures. This is your day job, and as well your side, not hobby, but your side business.
Venture, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I hope that the rest of the con goes well for you, Max. Now, if our listeners want to find out more about Shattered and order a copy, check out your stuff, how can they get in touch with you?
It's a very simple website. It's artagem.com. That's ARTAGEM.com. And that links to my store envy. There are prints, there's books, there's original art. Everything's available that way.
Okay, so everybody check it out. And Max, thanks for talking with me.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, Derek, that was so much great stuff from so many creators. And I think listeners will hopefully appreciate all the different variety of not only creators, but the books that they create and they talked about. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and, it's some of these people we've had on the show before. For instance, just the other month, we talked to Tom and Keenan, and, we've had Craig on the show multiple times. But there are some of these creators we were meeting and talking with for the first time. For instance, Sophie Goldstein, Hoyt Silva, and Jenn Jordan. So, there are a lot of good conversations, and there's more to come on tomorrow's On Location show. So there's something to look forward to.
That's right. We're only halfway done, right?
That's right. So we hope you enjoyed these interviews, and we hope that you will say thank you by going to the website of our sponsor, and that's Discount Comic Book Service. Their website is dcbservice.com. It's a great place to pre-order your funny books. And after you do, please do tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you. And then after you do get your comics there, please be sure to get in touch with us and let us know the kind of things that you're going to be reading. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find a tab on the right-hand side of your browser that says Send Voicemail. Click on that, and from the comfort of your own browser, you can send a message to us via the wonders of SpeakPipe. It's very simple and easy to do. But you can also call us the old-fashioned way. Our phone number is 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
And the best way to find out what's going on in the Comics Alternative universe, whether that's the podcast or the blog, is to follow us on Twitter. And we are at the number 2 guys with PhDs, and we sure appreciate everybody that retweets our tweets.
Yes, we do. You can also send us an email. We're 2guys@comicsalternative.com. You can get in touch with me directly. I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com. And Andy?
You can contact me at Wolverton@comicsalternative.com.
Mm-hmm. You can also find us on Facebook, on Tumblr, on Instagram, and on Google+. We also have a YouTube channel, so check that out. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can also find us on TuneIn. And you can find every single one of our episodes, as well as our reviews and comics-related commentary that we put up on the blog. And that's at comicsalternative.com.
There are so many ways to get in touch with us. Try them all.
Try them all. That's right. Then there's our forum as well. We appreciate you guys participating on the forum. And, we also like to hear from you when it comes to, let's say, iTunes reviews and comments. We really do appreciate your rating. So, take a moment after listening to this episode, or maybe in the concluding minutes, let's say, and go to your browser, go to iTunes, and leave us a rating. 5 stars is always nice. But also tell us what you think of our podcast, and that will help us in our ranking when people do searches on comics and podcast.
Yes, please do leave us a rating. We would really appreciate it.
Yes. And until next time, I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy.
We'll see you tomorrow.